Okay, so we were discussing over here the two different levels of the unity of Hashem. One is as the Goyim believe, and they say that Hashem is simply too high to really concern himself with the world, and because of that, Hashem left the conduct of the world. He left it up to the stars, to the Koich v'Hashamayim, to the constellations, and he is still the God over them, but he has allowed them because it's sort of beneath him to lower himself into the world itself. But the Alter Rebbe continues and says, but the truth is that it's not so. Just like Hashem is higher, just like Hashem is higher than the earth, he's also higher than Shemayim. Matter of fact, that's why the pasuk says, "Hamagbi lo shaves hamashpili lirois b'shamayim u'v'aretz," that he lowers himself. Even to the Shemayim, he has to lower himself. And the reason is because Hashem is much higher than both, than the Shemayim and then the Aretz. And therefore, to lower himself to the higher levels is equal to the lower levels. Relative to Hashem's greatness, he's so much higher that it doesn't make a difference whether he lowers himself to the Shemayim or he lowers himself to the Oretz. And therefore, also for Hashem to lower himself in the Shemayim, it's considered to be Hashpola. Hashem lowers himself. So now he goes to explaining how creation works. The creation of the world is not in a way of ila v'olu. Ila v'olu means like in a chain, in evolution, in a orderly way, one level coming from the other level. The bederech ila v'olu loy hoyo efsher liyes afilu madreges hayoser elyonos. He says, if the world would have been created in a gradual way, in a way of ila v'olu, then it would not be a possibility. Even the highest of levels could not come into being. The gam mitzias ha'oir, even the finding, the existence, for oir, you have oir and you have keli, you have the light and you have the vessel. That oir, that energy, that light, that existence of light is also hudavke al yidei hatzimtzum shehoyo ba'oir ein sof. How did that came about? Specifically through the restriction that was in the Oir Ein Sof. That's how we can get a entity of light. Light comes also through a tzimtzum. Without a tzimtzum is yesh me'ayin, is the opposite of ilo v'olu. So in order to even bring in the being of oir, there needed to be a restriction in the oir ein sof. But here we're saying that in order to have oir, you need tzimtzum. But so what about the oir ein sof? We're calling it oir ein sof. So he says like this: the ha'oir hakolul be'atzmusay, we're talking about the oir, an entity of oir that has come out. The entity of oir comes specifically through the restriction that was the oir hakolul ba'atzmusay. When we talk about the oir, which is included in the essence of Hashem, einoi b'bechinas oir klal. That is not in the level of oir. We're talking about in order to get an entity of oir, it needs to go through a tzimtzum, a totally new creation from a restrictive, because the oir which exists in the oir and sof, that's not considered the level of oir at all. As it stated in the Zohar, the lav inun nehorin chulu. These are not lights; those are not really shine. The the one that is included in the Ein Sof cannot be considered as oil. As it's written in the Sefer Shel Beinonim in the Tanya, the Moshel oir v'ziv hashemesh b'shemesh. Over there, when he gives the parable that the light and the ray of the sun, as it is in the sun. When we see the light of the sun, we see the ray of the sun. Over there, it's an entity. But when the light and the ray of the sun is in the sun, it does not go up. We don't call it at all with the name of a light or a ray at all. When the light and the ray of the sun is in the sun, when it comes out and it shines, it becomes an entity of light and a ray. But before, it says in Tanya, if it's outside, it must be inside as well. So there is a light within the sun. It doesn't get the name. It's not an entity of light or ray, while it is totally bottled in the shemesh itself. And for that reason, so the level of oir, the way it's explained from in the Eitz Chaim, that Hashem made a tzimtzum in which the oir was restricted, and then he brought a gilui hakav, which means he brought the revelation of a little line of oir into the tzimtzum. So v'lochein, and therefore gilui hakav me'oir ein sof, when the kav, the light that comes from the oir ein sof, nikro yesh me'ayin. That's why we call it an entity from nothing, from ex nihilo into existence. Why? Lifi shebemekoiroi be'oir ein sof baruch hu, because in its source. Why is it called me'ayin, from nothing? Because we're saying now the oir before, the way it's kolul ba'atzmusa, isn't defined as light at all. Lifi shebemekoiroi be'oir ein sof baruch hu bechinas ayin chulu, because in its source, in the ein sof baruch hu, it's on the level of ayin, and therefore it's yesh me'ayin, coming from nine, because there is hidden, is non-entity in the Ein Sof. So this is as far as the oir goes. He's starting to say, he's saying both the oir and the kelim. So as far as the oir goes, the oir itself, the oir that comes down in the world, is also considered yesh me'ayin. But the kol shekain, and of course, how much more so, is havus hakelim b'ha'olamis. when we talk about the creation of the receptacles, the vessels, and the worlds, sheheim b'derech ein aroich, they're in no comparison. There is no relationship between the Ein Sof and what comes out in a level of a Keli. So he's trying to say, so it doesn't really matter whether you talk about Oirish, talk about Kelim. From the Ein Sof, there cannot be Ilo ve'olu, not from the Oirish and not from the Kelim. And that's why Odom Kadme Nikra Odom Debrio the close. We have the worlds the way we know it, Atzilus, Briri, Tzira, and Asiya, in specifically in the world, but then there is a called the in a general world, when we include Keser and we include Adam Kadmon and Atika Kadisha over there too, over there it's a different order. Over there, Atzilus would be the Asiya, and the Adam Kadmon, that is called the level of Adam Debriya, the close. Why do we call it Adam Kadmon? So we see Adam Kadmon, the earliest Adam Kadmon, we call it Adam Debriya, the close. So we see, we refer to it even in Keser, in Adam Kadmon, we refer to it as Bria. It's Bria. Why? Because it's already a creation. Because in Ak, even in Adam Kadmon, there is vessels. Haris Bechinas Bria. That's why it's a creation. Bechinas Ischachus Davar Chulu. That's something new. There is a new thing that came about. That is the world of Adam Kadmon, the world of Adam Debriya. So, meaning to say that wherever there is Kalim, for sure that's considered to be a Bria. It's considered to be Yesh Me'ayin. It's a Schach, something new. He brings down now Boharamak Zal, the Sefer Alima, the Moshe Kordovois Zal in the Sefer Alima, and it ever brings down, which it's brought down in actually in Pelach Harimen on the Pardes. So over there he says in the in this Pelach Harimen, so he says, because of the Yoiser Mishein Aroich Asiya Legabe HaKeser, even greater than the world of Asiya is relative to Keser. So we have in our world, we have the world of Asiya, and you go through the Yitzira, Bria, Atzilus, and Keser, which is the basic Ishtalshulus of the world. So more than the non-comparison of Asiya relative to Keser is Ein Aroich HaKeser Legabe Ein Sof. There's more non-comparison from Keser to Ein Sof. So in other words, it's even more distant from the Ein Sof Keser than Asiya over here from Keser. V'ayin Mashe Kosuf Bepardes B'shar Hatzach Tzechois. And look what the Pardes says in the Shar Hatzach Tzechois. The Keser who Shoyresh HaKelim, that Keser is the root of the Kelim that were created in Abya. The Me'ein Sof Netzlu Bechinas ha'oiris. From the Ein Sof were separated the level of oiris. That comes from the Ein Sof. Umikeser hasoivel aso Ein Sof umisalem boy, and from Keser, level of Keser. Keser tolerates the Ein Sof, which means the Ein Sof dresses up in Keser. Tolerates means that it can handle the Ein Sof, the level of Keser. Umis alim boy, and the Ein Sof hides itself in the level of Keser, which means they become a vehicle to the Oiris, to the Ein Sof, so that the Kalim hide themselves. So from that level of Keser, Netzlo HaKelim Chulu, the Kalim came into, were separated into becoming Kalim. So V'hainu Kameshakosu b'Tikkun Zohar. This is like it says in the Tikkun Zohar. Oir Ein Sof Milgav. The Oir Ein Sof is from the inside. Kisra Ilo Milbar Chulu. The Keser Elyon, the Kisra Ilo, is from the outside, because the Oir is misalem in the Kalim. So therefore, the Ein Sof is the inside, and the Keser Elyon, which tolerates the Ein Sof, which dresses up the Ein Sof, is Milbar. So in either way, we're basically saying that whether we're talking about the Oiris or we're talking about the Kalim, both of them are very, very infinitely far away, Ein Aroich, to the Ein Sof. So we're not going to say now that somehow the Shamayim, the higher levels, are somehow closer than the Aretz, the Nimtzo. So therefore it turns out the Gam HaMadreges HaYeser Elyonos, even the very highest of steps, Heim Bechinas Hashpola Legabei, they are in a level of lowering himself towards Hashem. They are in a level of a hashpola. They are lowering themselves towards Hashem. So the idea that the Goyim say that Hashem sort of can go to the Shamayim, but he can't go to the Oretz, is not a valid argument, because just like Hashem is beyond the Oretz, he's beyond the Shamayim as well. So even the Madreigs Yosel Yonis are also Hashpol Lagabei. Ukeshem Shal Hashamayim Kevedei, and just like Hashem does have his glory on the Shamayim, that's what he says. So the glory of Hashem, though, just like it's on the Shamayim, the same thing is on the Oretz. Hashgochose Yisbarich al Hanivroim. The Eibishter's blessed supervision is on the creation. Shemashgiach al kol prat u prat. He supervises every detail and detail. The Rebbe is going to go in now to explain how the divine providence from Hashem actually extends to every detail in the world. Not only that Hashem supervises generally, there were different ideas. Some said that maybe Hashem does supervise, but he doesn't supervise specifically. Like it would say, there is an account there should be that many fish, but which fish lives or not, that's not accountable for. It's one idea. Everybody agrees that Hashem supervises human beings. What human beings do us, that everybody. And there was also a debate, though, does Hashem also supervise what's going on in the other domains of the world, say in the living world? Does Hashem supervise that as well? Is he have divine providence? So that's been a debate even amongst the from people. The Baal Shem Tov went and said that Hashem's supervision is literally on everything that goes. The Rebbe is going to bring down the evidence that Hashem supervises very specifically on each individual from even the animal kingdom. Let's look inside. The Gemara says there in Chulin Samach Gimel Amud Aleph, Ki kshahav chozi shalach, when the rabbi, the sage, when he would see a shalach is a bird that snatches the fish from the water. So when he would see this shalach, Omar, he would say, Mishpatecha tehoim rabo, your judgment is all the ways down to the tahoim, into the abyss, into the water. Your judgment is there. He'll explain in a minute. And when he would see an ant, Omar, he would say, your justice, your righteousness is like the mountains of Hashem. Rashi. So what does Rashi explain? What did he mean when he saw the ant? He would say Hashem's justice is like the mountains of Hashem. What was the comparison from an ant to God's righteousness, like the big mountains? Rashi explains that an ant has, its energy is just like a big mountain, which means the vitality, that chayis of the ant, that life force, is just like an adult, like a big one. It says, like, sometimes the Rebbe doesn't bring it here, that the soul that can vitalize a baby that was just born is the same soul that can vitalize a body like Oig Melech HaBoshen, a huge body, because the vitality is not measured by the size, but it's an energy, it's on a different level. And the energy of the ant is just like the big mountains. And then further, and he's saying, God, your justice even goes into the great Tahoim, the bottom of the world, which means in the ocean. Shezimanto sholach, you have prepared a sholach, this bird, lishpoy, to do your judgment, which means there is that fish that is supposed to die. That's in Hashem's plan. How does Hashem do his justice for that he wants that fish to die? Is shezimanto sholach, that you have prepared, you made this sholach come, lishpoy, to judge, v'lasis nikmoscha, to do your revenge, b'dgas hayom, in the fish of the sea, lahomis hamezumonim lomus, to kill those that are destined to die. That means that particular fish needed to actually die. And Hashem, how does Hashem accomplish this, what he wants to? That particular fish that needs to die, he brings the sholach to eat it. And this heavy Rabbeinu, from this Gemara and this Rashi, as we explained the Gemara, Rabbeinu Nishmos Eidin, the Alter Rebbe brought down to Shuvah. He responded, he challenged them, he showed them those that said that divine specific supervision, individual, is only on the human being. They said that with regards to the animal kingdom, the fish, over there's a general supervision, but not every individual fish. Human beings, Hashem looks at everyone, but maybe over there, no. But this the Alter Rebbe proved from here, those who wanted to argue that Hashgacha Pratis Yirakal Mina Odom. So he says, Shahari Bidgasa Yom, Yesh Dinu Mishpat, because you see that in the fish of the sea, there is a judgment, and there is a law that applies to them. And he prepares, and he happens to bring brings the sholach lishpoit velasis nikmosi, to judge and do his revenge. Those that are prepared, those who have to die, he brings it about. So that means that each individual fish that needs to die, Hashem supervises, and he sends the sholach to kill him. The Rebbe brings further, Ube Medrash in Vayishlach, the Medrash in Vayishlach also, he says, the Gam Tzipper, even a bird, Mibil Odei Shemaye Loi Mitz Tadi. If it's not for the heavens decreed, they would not be captured. If you are able to capture the bird, that's only because the Eber said that without the Shemaim, they would not be captured. The Baskel Yotzu Machris, because there is a voice from the heavens, Yotzeg or Machris announces Dimus Hulu, which means that they should be captured, that type. So that means each individual bird, whatever is captured, has been determined. But there seems to be a little bit of a conflicting statement in which we say that but the pasuk says that it almost seems like fish swallow each other. The bigger one swallows the little one. Seems almost like survival of the fittest, and it's not something which is ordained and destined. But the Rebbe says no. Even the survival of the fittest, the one that makes it and doesn't make it, has been determined that way. And this that our sages of blessed memory said. In the Gemara, Avodah Zarah, on page 4, side A, it says, you made man like the fish of the sea. That's what the pasuk says. So the Medrash says, so the Gemara says in Avodah Zarah, what does it mean? You made man like the fish. Just like the fish in the ocean, the bigger one swallows the smaller one. The same thing is with human beings, that the stronger one, the bigger one, swallows up the weaker one, the one that's less than him. So it almost seems like it just goes by how much strength you have. The bigger one, the stronger one, takes out the weaker one. So the Rebbe says no, doesn't mean that they can just do as they wish. That's not without a judgment, without a law, without a decision, without a verdict. No, ki'im hakoil b'hashgocho b'dina mishpat. Everything is supervised by Hashem, and there is a verdict, there's justice, there's a law, why everything happens. The Rebbe says, proof that this is the meaning over there. Because if we should just say that, the bigger one swallows the smaller one, but we apply this to the human being as well. But by the human being, everybody agrees that there is a divine supervision. And people don't just swallow them up arbitrarily, but that's been destined and divine by the divine providence. So the question is, over there, since everybody agrees, so that means, yes, the stronger one devours and swallows the lesser one, but it doesn't mean that it's done without supervision. The evidence to this is that even when it says Dogim Shabiyam, that everything is by divine providence, because from there we learn Shagam Be'odam came. From there we learn that this is also by a person is the same similar way. By the person, everybody agrees that there is very specific supervision. And therefore it has to be that even though it says the stronger one, the bigger one, swallows the smaller one, but that's also by divine providence. And this is also the meaning that we say in the Pirkei Avos. It says, Havei mispalel b'shleima shel malchus. Pray for the peace of the government. Had it not been for the peace of the government, a person would swallow his friend alive. So what does it mean? It doesn't mean that they can do as they wish. That is divine providence. But so what is there to pray for if that's supervision? So why? And yet we tell you have to pray, even though this is supervision. So that is the way, the conduct of the Supreme of Hashem is that there should be destined, whatever the it should be, but yet you have to pray for them because that's the way the Eibishter creates the world. What does it turn out from all this? So that there is a very specific supervision on creations. I'll call prat to prat on every detail and detail. So the oisam ha'ivdim lashemesh v'le'ayareyach. But those who worship, those who serve the sun and the moon, and all the other armies that are in the sky, asher leitzivisim, that I have not, that I've commanded not to worship, and they don't believe, etc. Misalkin hashgachose legamri miharetz. They remove Hashem's supervision totally from the earth and everything that is in the earth. They say, Hashem left the world to nature, should be run on its own. That would constitute totally Avodah Zarah, which means they don't believe in Hashem being in charge of the world now. That would be considered not only that there is a participation, but that would be considered that full avodah zarah, because according to them, let it be, they may agree that the Eibishter once created the world, but presently, according to them, is that there is no world today. There's no supervision today. So there's no basically Hashem in the world, according to that. And that's avodah zarah. And that goes against what Hashem has instructed Adam Harishon. When Hashem put him in the Itzav, his Loshen avodah zarah, Hashem instructed him against avodah zarah. It says like this. So there's two levels. One level is avodah zarah, which everybody is commanded, and then you have a second level, which is the level of only a yid is commanded. Let's do a few more lines in the next ois. Ois daled. Amram inyan hashitu hu inyan achar. When we say shituf means partnership. That's something else. That's not saying that Hashem is not here. But that's sort of saying that Hashem has a partner. The Hine, Amr Azal, for example, behold, our sages of blessed memory say, Gimel Shutofim Ba'adam. There are three partners in a person. Ava'im, so that's the obvious, a father and mother provide the physical creation of their offspring. And Hashem is the one that gives the soul. So it comes out, it's the combination between Hashem and the father and mother. The main part of it is the part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. How do we know that the main part of the person is the part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu? When the soul leaves the body, so then the part of the father and mother is left like a inanimate stone. Without the soul, the body has nothing. It's like an aven doimer. The kli haseichel ein maskil. The vehicles of the vessels of the person's intellect, his brain, he doesn't understand anything there without the neshama. The eye doesn't see, and the ear doesn't hear. Everything is gone, is nullified. So the neshama is what gives you everything, because if it's not, the neshama is not there, nothing functions in the person. And even in the portion that the father and the mother give, the main thing is the godly power that allows for procreation. How does the parents procreate? It's not the pshat that they just do it on their own. It's the godly power. This is brought down in the Gemara in Brachas that ain't sur kelikenu. Normally, sur is interpreted as there's no rock, there's no strong like our God. But the Gemara there says ain't sur means ain't sayer kelikenu. There is nobody, a designer, who can design like our Hashem. Why? Because Shetzor Tzura B'toich Tzura. He designs a shape within a shape, which means in the mother's womb. Hashem is the one that forms and shapes and makes that baby into what it is. He's a Tzor B'toich Tzura. So we see who is the one that forms even the physical shape of the baby. That's also HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Generally, when you talk about the concept of giving birth, that's through the power of the infinite. That's how there is procreation. Ukemoshe Kosuf, as the pasuk says, Zocharu Nikeva B'Rom Goimer Vayvarachos Goimer, that he created them a male and a female, and he blessed them. So it's the blessing of Hashem which allows for procreation. Not it doesn't have to happen, and that's why we see, sometimes if there is no power of Ein Sof, people are together, Zochar and Nekeva, and there's no birth. As we see, practically speaking, that there are many human beings, that because of the perspective from the nature perspective, there's nothing to hold back for them to have birth. There's no defects, there's nothing. And they don't give birth. So why is that? Because birth is Mikoich. So you see, we have three partners, but yes, the three partners are not equal partners. A, the neshama is from Hashem, that has everything. And B, even the physical, Hashem shapes it, and the power for creation, everything comes from Hashem. And yet there's three partners. We still call the father and mother partners. And that's where do we see that they're partners? Because the command is in the 10 Commandments, you have to honor your parents. So why is that? That means because they participated. Honor your father and your mother. So it means that they deserve the honor because they did something. Why do they deserve anything if they are not doing anything really? It's Hashem, the Ein Sof. No, because they make the choice to be together so that they could procreate. What makes them partners? Because they are people of choice. They could have chosen not to be together, and then they wouldn't procreate. As for example, the Gemara tells us of Ben Azai, he didn't want to get married because he says, "What could I do? My heart yearns for Torah." So, meaning, if he didn't want to marry. So that part is his choice. So it turns out, so it turns out that still you're existent. Everything comes from the Ein Sof. But how would you be existent? It's still hinges on the father and the mother. They're partners. This. And that's why we call them partners. So that's what he wants to bring down. There's certain things that you don't have a say at all. You're not even partnership with them. And that's how we're going to learn with regards to the level of shituf and the way that, but we'll leave that for a mitzvah for the next time. Around it. I do want to say.